Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Scouser's Premier League panel show. We have full four squares this week. Match week 2. We had the match week 1 show last week. If you missed it, we'll be here every Wednesday going over the Premier League with fans around the league. So this week, our newcomer making his debut appearance is Jake, who's lucky to be in Denver and not frying his ass off like us Chicago boys over here. How's it going, Jake?
It's going great, but I wouldn't say that so far. It's about 95 today. So,
Really?
yep. So it's not just Chicago. It's everywhere.
It's what is it over here, Alex? 95 feels like 305 or something crazy like
I
that.
saw 105 earlier, 105 heat index. So
I saw
Nice.
110. It was brutal.
It's cozy. We always make a point of bitching about weather on American Scouser, but it's definitely very well justified this week. So we'll get right to it because obviously it's week 2 now. I don't know if it's still early to form opinions and everything like that, but we are slowly getting there. So I want to kind of start by getting your guys' take from like week 2 in general. Perhaps like what kind of like got your attention or what you saw that's a scoreline maybe that kind of shocked you or made you smile, whatever the case might be. So, Jake, we'll start with you. What score from this week that you looked at and you were like, that is weird?
Well, I think that it's one that all of us can kind of agree on, and it was the Chelsea result. Made me very happy that they have not changed at all from last season. New manager and all those new players, and they still don't know how to play good football. So that was the one that I was following along. I was like, I'm having a good time watching this.
I think this is going to be a common ground, huh? Until we get a Chelsea guy to join us, I think this is going to be common ground that everybody is going to slightly enjoy. I mean, as a Liverpool fan, I'm sure you guys can only imagine that, we took extra joy in how bad Caicedo played and caused the penalty and stuff like that. That's a double joy for most Liverpool fans and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that's going to be a common ground. I don't know why. I mean, there are other teams that spend money but not like Chelsea does. So in some ways, I don't know, seeing that a billion doesn't get wins is maybe a win for the sports. I don't know what it is, but that's how it feels to me. Alex, give me something that you were like, what the hell?
well, I think Chelsea would have been, obviously a Fulham fan. Chelsea would have been my go-to as well to get a little revel in that result a little bit. Um, but the another one I'll go with is Villa. How good Villa looked, or how bad Everton looked. I can't. It's too early maybe to untangle that fully. I think we talked about it last week where we said Villa were not. I did not think they would struggle as bad as they did against Newcastle. So to see them do what they did to Everton is more what I thought they might be. And Everton looked bad, real bad.
Everton looked Everton, didn't it? Yeah, it was just like the same tone. Like they have not changed much either. It felt like same struggles and everything. And I think that's why, as we kind of keep building on the weeks, I think we'll know. But like you look at the first week scores and the second week scores. Like we watched Wolves in the first week, a team that was probably picked by some to get relegated. We're like, oh, they're not that bad. And then you see him this week, they're like, maybe United is not that good. So it's just like, it's probably going to take like 3-4 weeks before we get a good idea. But Allan, what do you have for us?
This might surprise everyone, but I'm actually kind of shocked by how well Tottenham played and how poorly United still is. Yeah, I have to give it to Jake and his Spurs, but it looks like Tottenham actually played well. I will say that United just didn't take care of their chances, and then it just went downhill after the first goal, and it was over. So.
Well, yeah, let's start with that game because obviously that was one of our games. Brian wants a Sol Campbell conversation, but I don't know how long this episode can possibly be if we go that route. That could be dangerous. But Jake, so let's talk about your boys. To me, the way the team plays looks like it will be a roller coaster kind of a season. Almost feels like a Leeds like kind of a season where it's going to be like a ridiculously good score one week and a shockingly poor score the next because of how open the team plays. I mean, how do you like the changes that you see this season?
Well, so far so good. Absolutely love it. The Leeds comparison has been made a bunch, and I see that. And that was actually the worry that a lot of fans had, was that we were going to be playing exciting football, but it was going to result in us just conceding way more than we were scoring. So there's going to be 7 goals in the game, but we're going to be losing 4-3. So far, obviously, we're scoring enough to get points, and I think even if United converted the Bruno header, and there was a penalty given possibly, and we ended up 2-2, but still played in the same style. I think the general feel behind Tottenham and the supporters is that we love the change after Mourinho and then Conte. It's just been very, very welcoming to see our Tottenham again.
So that's an interesting thing, and this is what I'm gonna like about the show, because we can just go on like all kinds of weird tangents. But I remember like having Chris from Burnley on one of the morning shows, and we were talking about like Sean Dyche, as I like to call Sean Douche, about his style and everything like that. And would you like, Alex? I know you guys. We've talked about like how much you guys like Marco Silva, but would you guys rather, I guess let's start with you. Would you rather have a manager that maybe does not play that much of an attractive but gets results? Or would you have a guy like what Spurs have right now, where it is really exciting to watch? It is really open. I think it's exciting for a neutral to watch as well, but has this risk and, might not always get you the 3 points, not a safe bet. What would you prefer?
So it's hard because we've, as Fulham fans, have lived through both. So we had Scotty Parker, who, I mean, Parker ball, I've even heard of it. Parker ball is literally, you go up and you put in a back 7. So you throw every backup center back on the field and try to keep the lead, which is horrible to watch. Now, it got us promoted. So at the end of the day, like, it is what it is. But a lot of Fulham fans had that conversation of, is this worth it? Like, do you go to a football match solely to see your team, finish in 16th and survive by the skin of your teeth? Is that fun? Is that like enjoyable? And I think the idea of a lot of fans was, no, give me Marco Silva and we're going to lose some howlers. But at the end of the day, like, it's fun to watch. And that's the point. If the manager is up to snuff, you're going to win more than you lose like that. So with Postecoglou, the hope is that you'll win more games 4-3 than you'll lose 4-3.
Yeah, Liverpool has been there. Some crazy games. It is fun to watch. Not good for the heart. Not recommended by doctors, but definitely, I'm sure for the neutral as well, is something kind of like fun to watch. Allan, where do you sit on that? Would you rather have fun, or would you rather win, or would you rather have Arteta's Lego head?
I like Arteta's Lego head. Arteta has basically played like this game of just this fast-paced attack and just passing the ball around. We'll pass it to depth, to you guys are broken down and we'll score. So right now everything is fun in games. I don't personally like managers that like to sit back. Emery tried doing that and that did not work well with Arsenal, and just tried to make it into a counter-attacking team, and that wasn't really what Arsenal was or ever has been. So I like what we have with Arteta. So
I think sometimes it depends on the club too, right? Like some clubs are okay with, I think when you come to like the bigger clubs, like you're expected to play attacking and stuff. So unless you get Mourinho at like Spurs, or like what you're gonna get. But normally, you don't want to win by sitting back and going on the counter and stuff like that. Brian says losing Kane is going to make Spurs better. Jake, true or false?
I don't think there's any world where that is true. Just because the quality that he brings in general. And obviously, so far, Richarlison has struggled to get on the end of some chances. So, it's always easy to play the game now. Like, oh, Kane would have finished those chances. So as of right now, no, I don't think that's true. But it's going to be a completely different style. So I don't think it's going to be better, but it's definitely going to be different.
You think like Kane's presence would make the style better, worse, same, or just about finishing chances that Richarlison can't because he's too busy complaining?
It would be different because Richarlison, his best attribute for this system is his press and his ability to kind of take the defenders into space on the attack, where Kane would have been dropping deeper and kind of creating some chances for other players, which would have been helpful in its own right, because you know how Postecoglou's system likes to have those wingers get those opportunities, and Kane would have been feeding that. So I'm not going to say better or worse. I can't do that to Kane. You know, I'm not going to the legacy that he left. So I'm just going to say it would be different. And he would have put his own little twist on the system.
Yeah, I mean, Sergi says it's like when we lost Coutinho, Kane was becoming bigger than the club. I think sometimes what happens is I don't think Kane was that player. I know for a fact Coutinho was that player where I think we felt like, or sometimes the entire team feels like, let's give him the ball and then let's see what happens. And it doesn't become a team game, and it becomes a lot easier to defend when you rely on one guy. I liked Kane because, I mean, not in general, like I guess, but his like style, I should say, or his play, just because he's not a striker he's a striker that makes people around him better. He's a great distributor of the ball as well. I know at one point, people were talking like, would you want him and stuff like that at that time. I mean, yeah, I think he would thrive in the role playing with like next to people like Mo and Diaz and stuff like that because he can drop and make things happen. And yeah, I mean, Brian says it makes him pray. I mean, that's what I felt like. That's what Liverpool was. And the tendency happens to be like, give the ball to that guy and a lot of standing around, hoping that guy is going to make something happen kind of a deal. Alex, like you guys, in terms of like playmakers, we kind of like talked about Mitrovic and stuff like that last week. Where do you think you guys are headed with that?
I mean,
in your head, so heading south.
Yeah, I will say there, Tony Khan, our director of football and son of the owner, has a big week ahead. We'll say that. Mitrovic obviously going to Al Hilal. It's been a will he, won't he for the last month and a half. So I think a lot of Fulham fans are just glad the saga is over. The weird thing is, like I said that last week, I think the window hasn't been terrible. I mean, it sucks to lose Mitro, but really haven't kept hold of Polina. Manor Solomon went to Spurs, and I hope he does well there. We like Manor Solomon, but the squad itself hasn't been depleted. They just haven't really added anybody. And there are several areas, I don't know that Raul Jimenez is going to be the answer up top. I would love for him to be, but I don't know that he is. They've linked with Moise Kean is from Juve, has been a pretty heavy link. So we'll see what happens there. Gift Orban is another player that I've heard linked. So this is typical Fulham, though. This is how it works is we'll sign 5 players in the last 72 hours of the window. And it sucks because you end up with these first few matches with less than a full squad, but it is what it is.
While we're at you and while we're on Fulham, what did you make of this week's game?
Yeah.
Since you were already shaking your head, let's keep going.
Yeah, I mean, frustrating for sure. I think the first half was pretty cagey, pretty even, and then Issa Diop just makes a bad mistake. We saw the same thing in Everton where I think it was Ashley Cole threw the ball in to nobody and led to that goal. So a similar mistake, just bad. And that's right before halftime. And then Tim Ream gets whistled for a second yellow and a penalty that I think I put that in the chat, but that's not a pen. It isn't. It's not a yellow card. It's not a penalty. I don't know. If you're watching the Spurs game, Jake, I think you saw it where was it Martinez came over and just took somebody out in the box, and that wasn't whistled. And Tim Ream, it wasn't a penalty, but it is what it is at that point. And once they scored, I think Mbuemo put away the pen, the match is over. So,
Yeah, and then you're also down to 10 men. Yeah, I would definitely want to talk about some of the refereeing because this week too, and holy cow, there we were sharing links that we can go over. I mean, I thought the hard drive was going to be full. I mean, I try
not to be too bitter, just like throwing links in the chat. Just this angry guy over here.
Because I know there was Jake was referring to that handball, which like a similar thing happened against Liverpool in the Chelsea game. Yeah. I was kind of torn on that one. I thought this was a lot more clearer than that one because it's away from the body and stuff. But I'm gonna go back to the refereeing. Allan, I did call that your boys would have a tough time against Palace. They do squeak it in. Is it just basically getting the 3 points and all that matters, or are you concerned?
No, I'm not concerned. Palace is a tough place for any team to go into. City also only got 1-0 victory last year against them there. It's also, we were doing well, I think, in attack, and we created chances, and then, we get the penalty, we score it, we convert it, and then all of a sudden we're now down to 10 men after Tomiyasu got 2 quick yellows. And it's just, and that second yellow is just so soft. I mean, I get that he's slowing down the counter chance, but it's just it's so incidental, and it's just like he kind of falls over Ayew, I think it was a player, and after that, Arteta was forced into playing, park the bus, and it's some Mourinho ball for a second there.
Jake, I mean, we didn't get a chance to ask you, I guess. We kind of, when we went around, we kind of like talked about expectations and stuff. So new manager, new style and stuff like that. And you guys had a lot of like turnover in terms of a lot of additions, obviously losing somebody like Kane's, like some major changes. What is the overall general tone of the expectation of a Spurs fan right now? Do you expect, hey, the changes, the team was already there, we just need the boost, or it's going to take some time?
Yeah, I mean, if you look back at Postecoglou's previous clubs, it takes some time. It took a lot of time for Celtic fans to warm up to him, and then he won back-to-back titles. So I think it's asking a lot for Spurs fans to be patient, but I think we need to have some. I was expecting these first two games to be both losses, so it's already been way better than my expectations were. I think it's just the style of play is what we're looking forward to. And if the results come, that's awesome. I think obviously there's like a threshold, like it has to be above like 8th or 9th place is where we should be, obviously. But I think the general consensus was if the play style is fun and we're scoring goals, the results can be a little less than our expectations and we can still be happy. But, we would love to have both. So I'm aiming for a 6th place or above finish.
Really? So like the automatic like default expectation or I'm sure the wish is there, but the default expectation is not like Champions League top 4 for this team right now?
No. I mean, obviously that's the dream, but no, I think, if we are trending in the right direction, this season will just be about building on that. And maybe next season we can go for top 4 and then maybe like some silverware in the cup competitions. But I think this season, getting back into Europe and just maybe playing some fun football, that's my expectation. And a good amount of other fans, obviously there are some that have those high expectations about Champions League, but I don't associate myself with them. So yeah.
A realistic Spurs fan, I see. Yeah. I like to see it.
So the other game that we said, like, we would keep an eye on, obviously, was the City Newcastle game. And I think, what do we see on that one, Alex? Do we see that City is just going to keep rolling? Or do we see that this Newcastle team is dangerous, like is a real threat?
It's funny. If I am a Newcastle fan coming out of that, I don't really feel any worse than I did going in. You almost feel better because you saw how well Villa played. So you're kind of like, all right, we get a pretty big win in week 1. We go into week 2, don't embarrass ourselves, which is sad that like that's become the standard for going to the Etihad is don't embarrass yourself. Like this, there are only 20 squads. This is one of them. Like, come on, guys. But no, I don't think you come away super unhappy. I mean, it's not like City went in and just thrashed them. Like they controlled large sections of that match and looked like the team to beat, which they were. But even, I don't know. I would not feel terrible.
Michael Martin says, fill in the blanks. London is what?
Red and white. Black and white.
It's too easy over here. I gotta keep bringing London dudes on. We can just mess with you guys every once in a while and throw this on there. I guess everything's
I think they look. If you're a City fan, you're like, all right, cruise control, we're good. And if you're Newcastle, you're coming out going, all right, that was okay.
If you're an Arsenal fan, though, are you looking at City and say, God damn it, how are we going to keep up with these guys? Or what do you say?
No, I think Newcastle had a really good game. It's just that they didn't get a chance to, convert any chances at all. So, yeah, we can definitely agree that it's not blue. No matter what they want to say. But no, I think I was watching the game with a friend that is a Newcastle fan, and he felt very proud. I mean, I guess the standard for Newcastle is to not get embarrassed at the Etihad. For a while, that was the same case for Arsenal, but I think this season is the standards to either win or draw or get a result, something. But yeah,
is that like a gauge for a team like yours, for example, though, Jake? We're talking about kind of like seeing things out and seeing the improvements and the changes and stuff like that. Is it too early to, for example, circle that game in the calendar, as they say. I mean, I'm sure you're not, or maybe like you're circling to avoid it or whatever. But do you look at that and say, is that a good gauge for a team where they stand when they go against a big boy like City?
Specifically for City, not for Spurs, just because we've had so much success against them in the past.
True, yeah.
So that's not a game I worry about. It's actually Liverpool is the matchup that I fear every single season. They have our number, and no matter what kind of form we're in and what form they are in, I expect to lose that, home or away. So I think that will be a good test. I think specifically this season, our first real big test will be against Arsenal in a couple weeks. So yeah, I think Liverpool and Arsenal are the two squads that we're going to be going up against, and that's kind of our litmus test, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting you say that, because I think for Liverpool, yeah, maybe that's because I guess maybe we go by history, right? It feels like, yeah, Spurs games we will get to goals. It's a matter of, are we going to be able to stop? And honestly, normally I would feel a lot better not having Kane in there, because he can be a pain to deal with, and he's a challenge for center backs. So in some ways I would feel better. I think, like, when I look at the Spurs team right now, and like I say, we're just going by a sample size of 2 weeks, so it might not be fair, but it feels like we'll definitely score on them. Are we going to outscore them? And I'm assuming Spurs fans are looking at most opponents like that too. Like, we'll score on them the way we're playing. Is it just, are we going to outscore them? You look at that United game. Yeah, United had chances, but then there are some periods in that game where, I mean, just Spurs just dominated, and it was just a matter of like when the goal was going to come. But let's talk about this stuff, because I think everybody can agree that there is going to be a lot to talk about over here. I know in the morning show I talked a lot about VAR and stuff like that. I mean, for our game, I mean, it would have been a lot easier if there wasn't a red card made up out of nowhere that wasn't a red card. And I think, we talked about this last week, Wolves getting robbed off a point and stuff like that. These points can come to bite you in the ass, especially a team that's fighting relegation, a team fighting Champions League. We're talking a lot of money that's going to be changing hands because of calls being made. Jake, I guess we'll start with you on this one. You are not a neutral. Yeah. How the hell is this not a penalty? I mean, explain to the audience.
So
what did you think when it happened?
Clear pen.
I thought if it was any other team than United, I was like, oh, they're not going to get that penalty. But I was like, it's Manchester United. Like, they're obviously, like, that's a penalty, like 100%. I don't know. A lot of factors, proximity, obviously, no reaction time there. So it's just where his arm is from the kick of the ball. We also talked about the angle of the arm. If your elbow's by your side, but your hand is like 90 degrees, that's not good. His is, that's it. I would have been asking for a penalty if it was Spurs.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically how I try to gauge these things. If it was for Spurs, you would say, how the hell are we not get a penalty, right?
Yeah, but I mean, generally, I'm good with sticking with the call in the field. Specifically this time it helped Spurs. But like last week, Son's penalty that he conceded, it was minimal contact and embellishment on the other end. And then Martinez on Romero in the box this week, very similar contact. So, the one thing I want is consistency. So if that happens again and it hits a hand and it's against us and we're looking for the pen, if they don't give that, that's fine. I just want the consistency.
And we probably won't. I mean, we don't get that, obviously, Alex.
No.
I mean, because you look at this week, what Pickford did.
Yeah.
Is similar to Onana. I would actually say it's less.
Yes.
Onana managed to clobber like two guys at the same time with one motion. This one was he like whiffed. And then got him, and it's a penalty. Last week, it's not. I guess we talked about VAR on the Monday Night Podcast, and I talked about it this morning on the Morning Coffee Show. Are we kind of, or is the Premier League, not we, is the Premier League kind of screwing themselves by saying this whole clear and obvious BS as opposed to just using the cameras as what they were, I thought, initially were for, which was another assistant referee. another set of eyes that gets to see multiple angles. Because like Jake was saying, in terms of not being, I think we're starting to gauge things like, well, it's not bad enough to be overturned, whereas that was never the case. They made it somehow the case.
Yeah, that's like one of those college football things where they brought in review or video review at first, and they said clear and obvious, and that works a little bit better because a lot of penalties in American football are a little more cut and dry, where it is you either hold the guy or you don't. I'm realizing that so many of these infringements in soccer and football are very, very judgment based. And so you could have a million angles, and all it depends on is whether the guy in the VAR booth thinks it's a foul. So that's going to change week to week. It's going to change VAR to VAR. So there's no way to have any consistency with any of this. Because, so Jake, next week, I said after the Onana thing, the next week we're going to have a whole situation, and it happened with Pickford. Next week there's going to be a situation with a handball in the box, and it's going to be ruled because that VAR in that moment was like, oh, that's clearly a penalty. And that's the problem, is there is so subjective. And you can, when there's a referee on the field, you can write it off a little bit by saying maybe he had a bad angle, he didn't see it, whatever. But then you have a million cameras, and all of us can see this, except for the one guy in the box. How does this happen?
And that's what, I mean, I guess frustrates me. You look at that Onana thing. I don't think there was anybody. I mean, there were blind people saying it was a penalty. So I don't understand how the guy who's doing VAR is the one that says, it's not clear and obvious, so it's not a penalty, and doesn't overturn it. Yeah. But I guess my thing is, Allan, and this is what I keep going back to with this, the whole time. I mean, I hated VAR initially. It's here. I've gotten used to it. I've somehow a little bit liked it because it was getting some calls right. But initially, the whole thing was refereeing is real hard. It's bang, bang. You guys don't know how tough it is out there. It's a fast game, blah, blah, blah. You guys get the benefit of a bunch of angles. Well, here you go, buddy. Our benefit is your benefit. Bunch of angles. Come and watch. Why don't we let the center referee still referee the game and just rely on the guy in the room now who's out of sight, out of mind, making calls that changes the entire game?
That's how it works in every other professional sports league in the world. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, the referee is told what to say and what call to make in a lot of these leagues. And in the Premier League, for whatever reason, it's down to the referee stopping the game and making the call. And it doesn't, like, honestly, that was a handball with Spurs, it might be biased, but whatever. But with the same thing with Pickford, yeah, Pickford, he punched a guy, and last week that wasn't called. This week it is. So the other problem is inconsistency. So
what is the answer, Jake? What does a Spurs fan want to see? I mean, how do we fix this VAR? I guess, like, if I put you in charge, what are you gonna do to fix this VAR?
First thing I would do is get rid of the lines for offside. That's my least favorite thing. I would say just, pause it right as the ball is kicked and get them the best angle you can. Have them look at it. If it's not obvious to overturn the decision on the field, you keep the decision on the field. In terms of these very judgmental calls about handballs and contact in the box, I don't know. That one's tougher. I would say kind of lean with the original thought of just whatever was called in the field. If you don't see something, clear and obvious, as they like to say, then keep it. But if it's anything close, let the ref go look. Have the one that's on the field make that call. I think he should have more power than the VAR ref.
I think he should be at least given. I think we've come to the point where, I mean, we're basically saying, hey, come over here, idiot. You screwed up. Watch this. And so that he comes over. I mean, I think if the whole thing of like they're trying to protect each other and stuff, I think we're making a bigger ass of the guy by calling him over and saying like, hey, look at this shit that you screwed up. As opposed to just saying, hey, you might want to come and take a look at this. So that it's not only that's clear and obvious that's changed, but he gets to take another look. I don't know. In this day and technology, get him like a wrist thing or something that he can look on his wrist. If you don't want these guys running back and forth, Premier League has gazillion dollars. Get these guys an iPhone they wear on their wrist or something like that, so that they can just look at it and be like, you know what? Yeah, that's cool. We carry on or whatever. If the speed is the issue, Alex, you're in charge. Fix VAR.
All right, so I do agree with Jake with the lines. I think that is such a farce. When you are trying to do something so specifically, intensely, how do you know that the frame you froze it at is the exact second the ball has left the player's foot? You could be a few frames off, and that's a difference. How do you know the angle? Like, that's such a farce. It needs to be pause it. If it's clear that the attacker has gotten an advantage by being offside, then you pull it back. If it's not, then it is what it is. That's one thing. And I go with more of I think you take the referee on the field a little bit more out of it. So in college football, it's the booth. The booth is doing the replay. The referees on the field put the headset on, and Major League Baseball, the umpires put the headset on, and there's someone in a room that makes the decision. The umpires come out and they go, yep, he's safe at first, and that's it. Because why would we send in the referee to a little monitor on the side in broad daylight to look at this, squint, and then be like, oh, yeah, I did get it wrong. Sorry. Move it from his hands. Take it out. Have someone in the booth say, that was a real soft yellow, not a foul. Pull it back. But you're right. There's this culture, and that might be the thing that needs to shift first, is this culture shift of we have to protect each other first, and then we'll make sure the calls are right. And they don't want to show up their friend on the field. And I get that. You don't want to show him up, but it's not showing him up. It's just make sure the call's right. That's it. I don't care that he missed it on the field if they get it right on replay.
Yeah.
Just get it right.
And I think it's become to the point, because they came with VAR, I feel like overall the decisions became more and more lax, where they were like, well, if I screw up, if it's that bad, they'll fix it. So yeah. I think the field calls have become a lot more, playing it safe as opposed to what they really saw or felt, because they think, well, if it's that bad, they'll definitely overturn it. But it's not being used like that now, so it's kind of changed. I like what the Dutch league does, because I don't know, maybe because I'm a defender, it's an art to drop a guy off. So I don't care if it's your shoulder or head or whatever. If you're off, buddy. I want it called. But I understand like the whole is it his elbow or is it the sleeve of the shirt? And like the Dutch league where they draw like a thicker line. And if you're in there, you're in there. So it gives that margin. So we're not talking about, is his shoelace? Is that a shoelace or is that a shoe and stuff like that? So I will like that. Allan, you're in charge. Fix VAR.
I would actually change the offside law a little bit. I would change it so that like if a hand's offside, it shouldn't be called offside. Like it should be if your leg or head or your chest is.
I mean, what is the final rule now? Anything that can score a goal.
Anything. Right? Well, now it's still arms though. Like if your arm is offside, it's still considered offside. So.
Isn't it like up to a certain side? It's only like the part of your arm that can
exactly where is it your armpit?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's going to depend on the VAR that day. Who knows? It's
But yeah, as far as VAR is concerned, like I think the Premier League has all this money in the world to just throw at cameras and everything to make things easier for these refs, and they don't use it. VAR, if it's used correctly, it's genius. It's down to the people, honestly. It's down to the people in the booth. It's down to the referee on the field. It's down to all these egos that don't want to fix what's right, and just don't want to. They're too stubborn. That's what it comes down to. I'd clear out the entire PGML, whatever it's called.
Would that be the dream? Manchester, City of Manchester would be mourning for like a year if that happened. Go ahead, Alex.
I was saying, as the fan of this group, and I think of the whole group who has seen his team play 2 seasons in the championship with no VAR, right? There is a level of acceptance with refereeing decisions at that level because there's nothing you can do about it. And over the course of a 46-game season, you're going to get screwed. There are going to be times where you are hard done by the official. There's an offside or something. But those type of mistakes, they even out because it's all officials on the field who miss a call here or there, and they miss them for the same type of reasons. The sight line is bad. You can't quite see it. So over the course of a year, it evens out. And there's no replay for you to get mad. There's no recourse. It's done. It's hard here because we can all see the call is bad, and they can fix it, and they don't. And that's worse than just getting it wrong. So you get a call wrong, that sucks, but whatever. But now it's like, you could have gone back and fixed this. What are you doing? And that's the frustrating part, I think.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. I didn't think of that. You have the freaking answer. Like, just go look it up, kind of a thing, as opposed to just marking it as question.
Yeah.
So actually, you know what? That's a good point. I didn't even think of that because obviously once we change, I don't know, maybe because I'm an old fart, you kind of like forget what it was. It doesn't. It's not like it's been around for decades, but I don't even. It's almost like you forget those days. These dogs don't. I can tell you that. Well, Leo doesn't know any better, but Stitch definitely remembers the days where there was a goal, he got a snack. Now we have to wait for the replay before he gets it and stuff like that. So he's got to learn to it. Leo doesn't know any better. So that's what I mean. Leo doesn't know any better. He didn't have pre-VAR days. So as somebody who's bouncing up and down, I mean, unfortunately, I guess we should say, you should add that in there. When you go back and forth, do you say, man, I miss when there was no VAR? Or did you find yourself saying, man, I wish they had VAR?
I mean, you want to say you wish they had VAR. You want to be like, man, we're going to get the calls right now. Like, we're going to get the calls right. We're not going to get screwed again at Hull. This is excellent. But then this happens, and you're like, we're getting screwed anyway. Why even have this? So I don't know. You want to have it because, again, it's the hope that it's going to get it right most of the time. And I think most of the time, if you look at the stats, it probably does get it right most of the time. But there are these enormous, I don't know, problems where it doesn't get it right. And you go, why do we have this? So
Brent thinks you're an expert on Spurs. We hope to
Thanks,
God.
Brent.
That's why we have him on over here. So let's hope so, yeah. Michael Martin says, I think we can all accept human error in real time at game speed with one angle. And that was the thing, like, for example, even in the Liverpool game, when that happened, even though I was like, red, what? Are you serious? I thought, you know what? It's bang, bang. He saw it there, and he thought it was high. And then, you're seeing the replays like this will get overturned once they see it. And then you're like, wait, what? Are you still, how is it still red? And I think that's when it becomes more frustrating. Jamie says, and I know like we've heard about this before, and I definitely agree with him that, micro ref and live audio of communication with VAR. I mean, rugby has this, and I know they tried it in the Women's World Cup as well. Jake, as the expert of Spurs over here, allegedly, will we ever see this, you think, where it's going to be more transparent, or they really don't want more controversy or more drama because everything that's being said is going to be overanalyzed?
I think we will. I think we'll get that transparency. I think, technology in the game is always advancing and evolving. And I think the next step is to do what, football or American football did a long time ago, and baseball just started to do, and that's the ref explaining it. And I think that the fans deserve that, even if it's just a one sentence thing. I think they need to say why they overturned something or didn't overturn something. I don't think Bruno's going to get his wish of referees having to answer for all decisions, but I do think that maybe just when they make the call, they give a one sentence little blurb like why they made the call, and that's that. Yeah,
Bruno can get his wish when I get my wish of not seeing Bruno. So my wish comes true, which comes true. Everybody's happy. If the refs were more human and approachable, mistakes can be a lot easier to take. Issues as they double down their mistakes because of their arrogance and making the game about them. And I think that goes back to like the egos and stuff like that, kind of like protecting each other. I would love to see that transparency because I think you're right. We do see it in sports, and whether you agree with it or not, I don't know. I despise baseball. Everybody who follows American Scouser knows. So I don't know how the heck they do it there, and I really don't care. But like I don't like an NBA, for example. There is like a lengthy explanation, and even when it's like what, you're like whatever, because it's explained at least one way or the other. Like I don't agree, but at least you took the time to explain what you say. Like I would like to know what Tierney said in terms of the red that he saw, that it made it stick, and didn't say, "Hey, you should come and take a look at this." Did he say, like, it's Liverpool, screw him? Did he say, like, I want to know what he said. Knowing Tierney, that's probably what he said, but let's move on. Okay, we talked about this last week, so I want to kind of touch up on this. I know, Jake, you were in here, so I want to get your take on it as well. We talked about Mason Greenwood last week. So that was basically talking about when Manchester United put out that feeler statement out there, but like, let's say he came back. I'm not saying he would, but if he came back, who will be mad? And then everybody said we'll be fucking mad, so they're not doing it. So they come out with a statement this week, which, I mean, I talked a lot about it this morning, so I won't give my take. People can tune into that show and like listen to it forever there. We talked about it a lot, but the statement didn't even admit that it's like it's not even the big picture. It almost made us seem like Mason is innocent. Then why is he being banned? So obviously he's not. Where do you stand on that whole thing, Jay? Because there are like different sides to the story. I know a lot of people are saying you should have a second chance, and he wasn't proven guilty, and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Where do you stand on it?
Yeah, I mean, they kind of sounds like they got a control group together, and they're like, or a focus group, and they're like, hey, so what if we brought him back? And then 90% of people are like, no, like you can't do that. And then there's the 10% of people that are like the worst people on Twitter. They're like, no, he's like completely innocent. Like they have no proof. They're just like saying that because they want a really good footballer back on their team. I agree with the ultimate decision of letting him move on to other things and not associating him with Manchester United Football Club any longer. His statement that he personally put out was kind of confusing. It was like I did not do those things that I was accused of, and he claimed that he was found innocent, which is not technically true. The charges were just dropped. There's a big difference. And then he's like, but I apologize for the things that I did. It's like, well, you didn't do them, but you're apologizing for them. So he did something. And I think that's enough to, have at least your career with that club be ended. And I think it was the right decision. Maybe, he turns a leaf and there's a path there where he comes back. But I think there's a bigger process than just saying, they didn't have enough evidence to charge you, but you probably did it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, the whole second chance thing. Yes, everybody should get a second chance. But I mean, what I was saying this morning is, everybody in our careers, if you really majorly screw up, they don't, take us to the back and shoot us. But most of us probably lose our current position and, are reassigned, as they like to say, in human resources or some way. You don't get it. That's because you get a second chance doesn't mean it's the same exact chance that you had previously. Is it the handling of this that has made it worse, Alex? Not only that feeler statement, but the statements they came out with saying, oh, we really investigated it. They don't show the full picture. So it's not denying what happened, but like it's almost like he raped her, but he loves her too. Kind of like not the full picture kind of. You think if it was handled better, it would have been better for all involved, including Mason and his, like girlfriend, wife?
Oh yes. Like that's the whole thing about this is that if they had just, it reeks of a group of people, like you said, Jake, who are just kind of out of touch with how normal people think and feel and like view the world and relationships between people. They're like, oh, people won't mind. Like he's a young guy. He's really good at football. So it'll be fine. It'll blow over. And that lack of judgment, of ability to see a little bit into the future is pretty shocking. The feeler statement was ridiculous. We talked about that last week. Like that, like you said, Timucin, like if we did bring, hypothetically, if he did come back, come on, guys. And then the statement they put out, they said, we did our own investigation into things that are not public. And we came that he wasn't guilty or whatever it was. I'm like, we talked about it. There's a video, there's audio, there's a transcript. Are you telling us, it's like they're telling us to disbelieve our lying eyes and our lying ears and just, this is what happened. But it does put Mason in his life, and he's now been dragged through this even more. Just let him go, dude. Like, why it doesn't matter. It hurts everybody involved. Let this kid go and do whatever he's going to do somewhere else and just not worry about it. It's not your problem anymore.
Nobody wins, right?
No,
I mean,
no.
Either scenario, I don't think anybody wins. I mean, but I think nobody won at all now. I felt like it made it worse if everybody admitted to the guilt. Yes. I mean, I know they can't flat out agree, but I think it was a bit more acknowledging the mistake, acknowledging the issue, and showing remorse and saying, I'm going to do this, though. I think it would have been probably better for United. It would have been probably better for Mason. So, I mean, I guess, Allan, so let's say, obviously not at United, where would he ever get a second chance? Because who would want?
It looks like Saudi Arabia and Jamaica at this point, from the reports that I've seen.
Jamaica? Really?
Jamaica wants to bring him over to the national team, as far as the report that I saw. And then there was a Saudi Arabia team that was willing to bring him on a free transfer.
I had not heard that.
Yeah.
I had heard the Saudi one, but I
Mhm.
felt like that was just coming from people that are like,
Yeah,
everybody's going kind of a.
yeah, that's true. It could have also been that, but like honestly, as far as Mason Greenwood is concerned, like it's just second chances are earned, right? And he's got to show that he is deserving of one. So he's a young kid, but he made a horrible. He did a horrible thing. I'm not going to say mistake because it's
not a mistake.
Yeah, it's not a mistake. You did.
Yeah, it's
did
not a
something really
mistake.
bad.
Yeah, I didn't you didn't trip
Yeah.
her.
Yeah, exactly. The horrible thing, and like yeah, and I think football is a privilege. It's not a right. It's not a right that is given by a government or by any religious entity or whatever. It's a privilege. There are very few people that can play it at the very high levels, and he had the opportunity to do so, and he threw that away. So if he's got to show that he can earn another chance at it, he's got to own up to the things that he's done. And he's got to admit to it, in my opinion. It seems like he kind of did, but he kind of didn't. So
yeah, he basically half-heartedly did, and I think that's what hurts. And I know before this drama, there was a lot of talk about him possibly going to Turkey, and honestly, there was probably a chance at the time, because I mentioned this morning. Turkey's record on this is pretty brutal. It's not Saudi Arabia, but it's like the cases are not maybe as extreme, but it's still horrific. Some of the things I see and hear and stuff like that. Sadly, it's my country, but you can't deny some shit. But I would think none of the European countries or leagues would have the fans that would be accepting it. I don't care if they're in the second tier, third tier, or whatever. 2 weeks ago, I really feel like I don't think he would be able to come to an Istanbul team, like a Fenerbahce, I'll say, because those images and that video and the audio and stuff would make it there before his plane lands. And normally, 1,000 people meet these stars when they come at the airport. They would be meeting him over there to beat his ass. So that wouldn't happen. But if they did it, maybe the way I said it, where it looked like an apology, he needs another start and stuff, they could have squeezed him into another team in the first division, maybe another one of the bigger teams, where he could have started again under the cover of this is his rehab, if you will. He's getting a fresh start and stuff like that. But by doing all this, I think it's made it 10 times worse. I just don't see that happening. I know the Saudis have said no. Jake, it's already a league in a country that's plagued and has the stereotype, and rightfully so, in most cases, of getting negative attention because of women's rights and stuff like that. I would think the last thing the Saudi league would want is, we'll take your guys that are bad in that category and get even more negative publicity.
Yes and no, in my opinion. I think that they've already, had this bad track record, and they're still bringing in the biggest stars. So it's they kind of feel like they're kind of immune to it. It's we know that we do this bad stuff, but we have all this money, so we're just going to flash it, and people are going to forget about it, which, that's the whole sports washing thing. So I think, unfortunately, I do see him ending up in Saudi. I think that they have, loose enough morals, which we've seen, that that one of those teams is going to try to get an advantage by bringing in a great player who, has done bad things.
You agree, Alex? You think they will take him over there despite the additional negative attention he'll bring?
I wonder if this is a situation where they do the opposite and they say, we're with you. We don't think Mason Greenwood should have a platform, so we're going to say no. And it's almost a way for them to earn a little bit of credit in the bank back in a perverse, kind of ridiculous way. But that would almost fit. I wouldn't be surprised either way. If he ends up at some either PIF or non-PIF, I think the PIF owns 4 clubs there. If he ends up at one of them, I would not be surprised if they come out and say, we don't tolerate this, we're not going to accept him. I would also not be surprised. So that's not really an answer, but there's nothing.
No, I hear you. I feel like even them would have a better PR department than Manchester United, and any half-assed decent PR group would be saying, dude, you don't want any of this. First of all, you're bringing Mason Greenwood. You're not bringing Benzema. So you're bringing Greenwood. And yeah, you don't want it. We already got a name out for it. Last thing we want is like, like the poster child's coming over and like, scoring a goal and celebrating and stuff like that. But I know what, Jake is saying too. They might be like, we do us. So I guess, see that as well. So that's a good point. So let's take a peek at match week 3. I'm sure, hopefully, we'll be getting a better picture of things to come. Probably the game of the week, I would say, might be slightly biased, but it's probably Newcastle Liverpool.
Yeah.
But I'm sure the Arsenal Fulham game over there gets your guys' attention for some odd reason. Allan, what do you think is going to happen out of that one? Will Fulham put up a fight? I mean, it's
Fulham. It's a London derby. I expect Fulham to come in and play a tough game. That being said, I do expect a 2-0 victory. We'll just remind Leno, why he left Arsenal and why he couldn't compete with Ramsdale. But then again, I could also be wrong completely, and we're all laughing at me on Wednesday. So we'll see.
Alex, are we laughing at Allan or what?
I mean, my heart says Fulham are going to win.
Laugh it up, like
the heart is like, all right, Vinicius is going to score 3, and Raul Jimenez is going to have a brace. But I mean, obviously, but no, I mean, it's like with your head thinking the way the season's gone, it's difficult to disagree with a 2-0 or even 3-0 scoreline. I think until Fulham show that they can actually score goals, it's tough to say they're going to score a ton more. And who knows, maybe they get Moise Kean tonight or tomorrow morning England time, and he beds in and plays really. Who knows? Anything could happen, but with the squad as it is right now, I'm not super, super confident. And Fulham fans knew that going in. We knew you had to get some points out of the first 2. Arsenal and City are a tough 3rd and 4th match, and then there's the break. So anything out of these next 2 is bonus, but not super confident for a result heading into this weekend.
So I'll ask Jake, because he's going to be the independent source over here. Do you think Arsenal being in that title race and stuff? Because I don't get that feeling. If you're going against for a team like Fulham, Bournemouth, etc., who are trying to steal points and add points to make sure they're safe from relegation and everything, you would think when they look at a calendar, you think, Jake, they look at the City game, they're like, well, we're not going to get shit out of that. When they're really planning the season out, do you think Arsenal is at that level, or is Liverpool at that level in terms of when those teams look at that fixture list, they're like, we might not get anything that week? Or is it still a team that they're like, you know what, this is a game we can get something out of?
Yeah, I think it depends on home and away to begin with. But I think if you're playing home at this point against Arsenal, I think there's still definitely a chance. I think they're looking at that and saying we could get maybe 8 points. It's not like, City, they're probably, obviously you don't go into a match thinking you're not going to win or not get a point. That you can't go into any sort of match like that. But I think Arsenal are not at the level quite yet to be like, oh, write this off, we're not going to get a point. If they're not at the City level, I think they still show some weakness, especially on the road. So I say that, and then I look at this matchup, and I think Fulham are going to be lucky to come away not embarrassed. You look at the Everton game where Leno was your man of the match against an Everton team that looks terrible, and the XG that they created against Fulham, you take an Arsenal team that is far superior in talent, and I think it's going to be pretty ugly, actually.
Yeah, I think I would feel more confidence in a good contest if somebody like Mitrovic is there. I keep going back to that because I felt like, similar to Kane was at Tottenham, it's a player that made everything go. And I think, City, I guess we're going to find out when Kevin De Bruyne went out. I think they will still miss those balls that he put in the box and made just things happen. It felt like it just bounced off of the guy in the box would have to avoid the ball, not to score and stuff. They might miss those passes. But I felt like, Mitrovic was a guy similar to Kane that made Fulham go. But yeah, I think I have Arsenal in this game as well. Bournemouth away, Jake?
Last year it was a 3-2 thriller, and we had to come back, and that was with our defensive head coach. So I think it could be another high scoring one. So I think we get I mean, I don't want to be too optimistic. I think we get all 3 points, but I think we concede once and maybe even twice, which is what you're going to see in a Postecoglou system, and we're going to have to accept it. So I think Bournemouth are there for the taking defensively, but they might lull us into some possession and get a counter on once or twice.
Yeah, it was kind of hard to tell from our game, to be honest with you, because I really felt like we started the game so shit. It almost felt like we hustled them into just not, parking back there. They were like, oh, man, this is going to be like an easy game. And then before you know it, like, it literally felt like we did it on purpose. They're like, we'll really fuck up in the beginning. We'll let them score. They'll get comfortable. Then we'll kick their ass, which is what basically ended up happening in, like, overall in gameplay as well. But so I couldn't tell if they were really poor defensively or they just got too comfortable almost and too brave and did not sit back as much as they would. You think, by the way, Jake, teams who play Tottenham, will they play more defensive, or knowing that you guys are going to really come out and play attacking, will they play more attacking than normal, knowing you guys are vulnerable in the back?
I think that they're definitely going to be looking to counterattack. I think that's our biggest weakness because we get so many players forward, and our fullbacks like to play in the middle and get up in the attack. That if they get a loose ball and they get someone on the outlet to the wing, there's going to be space there. So I think they're definitely going to let us play a little bit into their half and then try to spring on the counter, which we're going to have to defend against. We have 2 pretty quick center backs, and that's what we're relying on. So as long as we can score more than the other team, as Postecoglou says, we'll be okay.
Hold on. Jamie first he said a quick question, then he said it's not a quick question. But while we have you two guys, I figured there'll be all kinds of fireworks. So favorite player to have played for both teams?
I mean,
which way are we going?
I'm assuming we're going Arsenal Tottenham over here.
Yeah. I've got one for Fulham Spurs. It's got to be
I got one.
It's got to be Clint Dempsey.
That's fair. I was going to go Musa Dembele.
I mean, also, but
I can't.
I'll bow out. Good luck to you two.
I can't start Dempsey because it would have to be default Dembele, I guess. How about for Spurs and Arsenal?
Sol Campbell. I mean, as far Fulham and Arsenal, I say Leno. I like Leno.
Yeah. You guys.
You were just talking about Leno.
I know.
We like him. We all like him. No, we all like him.
Look, when he's playing against us,
Yeah.
Same with Martinez over at Villa. So.
So Sol it is? Is that the common ground here?
That's for me, yeah.
I don't think I can. Out of
you know what?
Spurs.
You know what? If we're counting academy players as well, Kane's really good. He was also an Arsenal academy player.
That's fake news. I won't believe it. My first Spurs jersey ever was Adebayor, so partial there, even though it was not a great tenure. I was like, oh, that guy's really cool, and I just started following Spurs. Like, I'm getting that jersey. So
Anelka is one of them, really?
Danny Murphy.
I did not know Anelka was one.
Is Anelka one of them? Anelka played for Fenerbahce at one point, so we'll have like a big freaking common point over here. I did not realize Anelka was at Spurs. So now
George Graham, the coach.
That's like going really into our guy. You guys got to put like a good name over there. We should have an episode where like, where are they now? And half of them are probably in Turkey or Saudi Arabia. Newcastle, Liverpool. I'll go with the neutrals over here. I feel a lot more confident than I did 3 days ago, knowing McAllister is going to play. And not because only McAllister is going to play. That puts McAllister where he should play, which puts Gakpo where he should play. And then Endo plays where he should play. So I think it almost is like gaining 3 players, not just 1 player. And that's why I feel a lot more confident than I did. It's probably one of the toughest games of the season, I would say, fixture-wise, going away to Newcastle. Because I don't think it's nothing against Arsenal, for example, but I mean, even to a certain extent, I feel like the Spurs or Fulham, I feel like it's a bit easier to take the crowd out of the game. And in some ways, like Arsenal is a big example for that. Sorry, but in terms of being able to actually turn the fans on the team by dominating and early, you can really kind of like reverse the home advantage sometimes with Arsenal. Whereas I never get that feeling with Newcastle. They're going to be there regardless of how the game is going. That's why I think it makes it like a really tougher fixture. But you guys are the neutrals, so I might be slightly biased. You never know. Allan, let's start with you. Newcastle, Liverpool, what do you have?
I think we're going to have a really good match, but just the fact that it's at St. James Park, I just can't see Liverpool coming out with a win. I can see a draw, but Liverpool's just, or not Liverpool, Newcastle's just full of quality right now. They kept City down to 1-0, so we'll see what happens.
Well, we'll see what happens. It's not a prediction, Allan. That's not how this goes.
Oh, okay, my bad. I thought I said that Newcastle was winning, but
Newcastle,
no, yeah, Newcastle's winning.
I'm trying to get something else from you, but okay,
2-1.
Alex, what do you have for that game?
All right, I don't know. I think yes, Newcastle looked real good against a Villa side who is better than they played against Newcastle. Newcastle looked good against City, though. If you watch the highlights of that match, Haaland was not himself. They didn't have De Bruyne, though Phil Foden put on the show. So City was not at full gear, full tilt. So it's difficult for me to fully buy in to Newcastle and think that they're right on that level. I think we all had Liverpool in the top 4. I think Timucin, you had them winning the league. So we all had them up there in that.
Obviously.
If Liverpool are going to win the league, this is the type of match that they need to go and get 3 points. That's just how it works. So that's not a prediction. I would side more with you, Timucin, that I think they will go out there and get a result at St. James Park. I would not be shocked if it's a draw, but I think they're going to go get 3 points.
I like what I'm hearing there.
I'm not sold on. I don't know. I'm not sold on Newcastle yet. I know they're a great side and they'll be in the Champions League fight, but I don't know.
Come on, Jake, pile on. Pile on with the optimism for me.
I mean, if anyone watched the first 8 minutes of Liverpool's game this past week, I don't think anyone can pick Liverpool to beat Newcastle. That was some of the worst football I've seen Liverpool play in a long time. Obviously, they came back and won because it was Bournemouth. But you have to bring the focus to an atmosphere like St. James. And like you mentioned, you can't take the crowd out of it. No matter if you're up 2 goals, they're still going to be there. And they're going to be loud, and Newcastle will always be able to come back. So I'm going to go 2-1 Newcastle. I think that just, especially at this point in the season, and Endo just coming in, I don't think that Liverpool have that solidity in the defensive midfield area. I think you see Endo get an early yellow card because, first real experience in the Premier League. I think it's going to be a little too much for him, and he might be playing a little cautious after picking up a yellow. So I see Newcastle coming out on top.
Well, it was going so well, but okay. There goes that optimism. Northside Gunner says Liverpool will take care of the Chickens. If I'm right, he wants your Flamingo kid. I really like Northside Gunner because last week we shared the Richarlison hate as well. So we got a lot in common going on with him over here. Endo Brace, Liverpool 17. Says Michael. I think, we still don't know about Endo, right? I liked what I saw from him in the limited time he came in. Into a very difficult situation. Ideal scenario was him coming in when we were up 3-1, playing 15, 20 minutes, and then, starting against Newcastle. But even in that situation, I thought he did well. My biggest thing is, like I said, it puts everybody else where they should be, so increases everybody else's performance. But yeah, it's a tough place to go, and I agree with Jake. I mean, it was a horror show. That beginning of the game was a horror show. The only thing that I can think of is, sadly, this has been a trend for this team. And we always concede first and stuff like that. But that was beyond poor. It looked like they were. I'm like, who are these people? Kind of a start to that game. I really feel like they know this is a tough fixture. They wouldn't start against Spurs like that. They would not start against City like that. I think the players will come out with a better mindset, or at least I'm hoping they come out with a better mindset. So before we go, any crazy predictions for this coming week? So let's put up the fixtures over here. Alex, we'll start with you on this one. Do you see anything crazy happening that next week we say, damn it, Alex, you got that one right?
I mean, I'm not going to be as crazy to say that Bournemouth are going to get something off of Spurs, but I was about to say Bournemouth are going to take some scalps this year. They had a very tidy transfer window. They are not going to be relegation fodder. They might get dropped, but they're going to beat a few teams this year. I'm hoping against hope that Luton can head to Stamford and do the unthinkable. But I'm curious on the Crystal Palace-Brentford match. That's the one that I'm, again, of teams that are in and around Fulham's spot. That's the one that I'm going to be kind of laser focused on. I don't think Palace are very good. And to see how Brentford beat Fulham last week was disappointing, but I don't think they're that good. So I'm curious to see kind of where that mid-table battle shapes up with those two.
Michael says Everton could draw. That'd be crazy. And honestly, I can see them losing that game very easily against Wolves at home. Because Wolves are a team that can counter. I know against United, they did awesome counters, just could not finish on it. They were missing that piece up top. If they can kind of sort that out, I can see them beating Everton. Jake, what do you have in mind in terms of craziness?
Would it be a bold prediction to say Chelsea are going to beat Luton? Is that bold enough for you guys?
I love this. I like you guys. This is great. This is great. Keep it coming.
Yeah, I think Chelsea hate is going to be a common theme, so we can go with that.
No, actually, one of the comments slightly beat me to it. I think Everton are going to get a win, not just a draw. I think they're going to win against Wolves. I think Wolves showed that can be a really good team against United, but regressed to the mean in their last match. So I think they're still a very average team. And, Everton, why not? At home, it's a fortress. We like Everton at home.
That's freaking bold. Yes, I'll give you that. You get full credit for the bold part of the prediction. Yes. Allan, what do you have?
Luton 2, Chelsea 0.
Oh, yes.
Jeez, and you call clean sheet and everything. Well rested, I guess.
No, realistically, I can see Luton trying to get a point, not actually winning, but I can see them getting a point. But I think the craziest thing would be Nottingham Forest actually taking points at United at Old Trafford. United's bad right now. If they can't complete their chances, I mean, Bruno Fernandes had like a clear chance on goal with a header and completely made a field goal instead. Like come on. I think Forest is going to get a result, and I think Luton can fight a better game and try to get a result as well. So
I'll go with Forest as well. I can see that happening just because it goes back to what I was talking about, especially right now with all that's happening in that club. It's very easy to turn that crowd at Old Trafford against that team and have them make a negative impact instead of positive. So I can see Forest, if they start well, especially making a game out of that and getting something out of that. I don't know if they'll win, but anything else, I don't know. So we'll see. I guess there's no way all 4 of us can come back with 3 points next week since you boys are playing each other. But thanks a lot, guys. Thanks to all those listening, commenting, especially Northside Gunner, my Richarlison hating buddy. But yeah, thanks a lot as always. Give us a like, a follow, all that good stuff. There should be a button down there that you can click on to kind of subscribe for good. And then we will see you guys next time, same week. Have a great week, everybody. Take care.